Good evening, all. Welcome to Short and Spooky Saturday. We are on location at the Castle Dracula Experience in Second Life, the domain of wanders nowhere. You are very welcome to join us here if you like, or drop by afterwards. The Castle Dracula Experience, after 14 years in the making, opened just this October. It is a massive creation of Wanders Nowhere in Second Life. It is a faithful and very immersive narrative experience of Bram Stoker's novel, offering a magnificent environment to explore and an intriguing hunt to locate all the missing pages of Jonathan Harker's journal. Tonight we share with you the short story, The Spectre, by Guy de Maupassant. One day as I was walking, I met a friend I had not seen in years, and he told me of the misfortune which had shattered his life. Having fallen madly in love with a young girl, he had married her, but after a year of more than earthly happiness, she died suddenly of an affection of the heart. He left his country home on the very day of her burial and came here to the city, where he lived now, alone and unhappy, sad and wretched. I promised to do him a slight favor, he asked, to go to his country home and to get out of the desk in his bedroom, their bedroom, some papers of which he had urgent need. For nothing on earth, he said, would induce him to re-enter that house. He gave me the key to the room, which he himself had locked on leaving. He explained to me exactly what I had to do. It was very simple. I must take 2 packages of letters and a roll of papers from the first right-hand drawer of the desk. I took leave of him to accomplish my mission. It was simply the matter of a ride which I could make in an hour on horseback, his country property being but a few miles distant from the city. When I arrived, the manor looked as if it had been abandoned for 20 years. The open gate was falling from its hinges, the walks were overgrown with grass, and the flower beds were no longer distinguishable. The noise I made by kicking at the shutter brought out an old man from a side door. He seemed stunned with astonishment at seeing me. "Then you're going into her room?" he asked me. "But it has not been opened since the death. If you'll be kind enough to wait for 5 minutes, I will go and see if—" I interrupted him angrily, and he no longer objected. Pushing him aside, I went into the house. I first went to the kitchen, then 2 rooms occupied with this man and his wife. I then crossed a large hall, mounted a staircase, and recognized the door described by my friend. I easily opened the door and entered the apartment. It was so dark that at first I could distinguish nothing. I stopped short, disagreeably affected by that disagreeable, musty odor of closed, unoccupied rooms. As my eyes slowly became accustomed to the darkness, though, I saw plainly enough a large and disordered bedroom. The bed without sheets, but still retaining its mattresses and pillows, on one of which was a deep impression as though an elbow or a head had recently rested there. The chairs all seemed out of place. I noticed that a door of a closet had remained half open. I first went to the window, which I opened to let in the light, but the fastenings of the shutters had grown so rusty I could not move them. I even tried to break them with my sword, but without any success. As I was growing irritated over my useless efforts and could now see fairly well in the semi-darkness, I gave up the hope of getting more light, and I went over to the writing desk. I seated myself in an armchair, and letting down the lid of the desk, I opened the drawer designated. It was full to the top. I needed but 3 packages, which I knew how to recognize, and began searching for them. I was straining my eyes in the effort to read the superscriptions when I seemed to hear, or rather feel, something rustle in back of me. I paid no attention, believing that a draft from the window was moving some drapery, but in a minute or so another movement, almost imperceptible, sent a strangely disagreeable little shiver over my skin. It was so stupid to be affected, even slightly, that self-respect prevented my turning around. I had just found the 2nd package I needed and was about to lay my hand on the 3rd when a long and painful sigh, uttered just at my shoulder, made me bound like a madman from my seat and land several feet off. As I jumped, I had turned round my hand on the hilt of my sword, and truly, if I had not felt it on my side, I should have taken to my heels like a coward. A tall woman, dressed in white, stood gazing at me from the back of the chair where I had been sitting an instant before. Such a shudder ran through all my limbs that I nearly fell backwards. No one who has not experienced it can understand that frightful, unreasoning terror. The mind becomes vague, the heart ceases to beat, the entire body grows as limp as a sponge. Now, mind you, I do not believe in ghosts. Yet, nevertheless, I collapsed from a hideous dread of the dead, and I suffered in a few moments more than in all the rest of my life from the irresistible terror of the supernatural. If she had not spoken, I should have died, perhaps. But she did speak. She spoke in a sweet, sad voice that set my nerves vibrating. I dare not say that I became master of myself and recovered my reason, no. I was terrified, and I scarcely knew what I was doing. But a certain innate pride, a remnant of soldierly instinct, made me, almost in spite of myself, maintain a bold front.
"Oh, sir, can you render me a great service?"
I wanted to reply, but it was impossible for me to pronounce a word. Only a vague sound came from my throat.
"Will you? You can save me, cure me. Oh, I suffer frightfully, I suffer. Oh, how I suffer!"
And she slowly seated herself in my armchair, still looking at me.
"Will you?"
I nodded in assent, my voice still being paralyzed. Then she held out to me a tortoise-shell comb and murmured,
"Comb my hair, oh, comb my hair. That will cure me. It must be combed. Look at my head, how I suffer, and my hair pulls so."
Her hair, unbound, very long and very black, it seemed to me, hung over the back of the armchair and touched the floor. Why did I promise? Why did I take that comb with a shudder, and why did I hold in my hands her long black hair that gave my skin a frightful cold sensation as though I were handling snakes? This I cannot tell. That sensation has remained in my fingers, and I still tremble in recalling it. But I combed her hair. I handled, I know not how, those icy locks. I twisted, knotted, unknotted, and braided them. She sighed, bowed her head, and seemed happy. Suddenly she said,
"Oh, thank you."
and she snatched the comb from my hands and fled through the closet door that I had noticed ajar. Left alone, I experienced for several seconds the horrible agitation of one who awakens from a nightmare. At length I regained my senses. I ran to the window. With a mighty effort I burst open the shutters. I threw up the sash, and what to my wondering eyes should appear but a flood of light cascading across the empty room. Immediately I sprang to the door by which that being had departed. I found it closed and utterly immovable. And then the mad desire to flee overcame me like a panic, the panic which soldiers know in battle. I seized the 3 packets of letters on the open desk. I ran from the room. I dashed down the stairs 4 steps at a time, and I found myself outside, I know not how, and perceiving my horse a few steps off, I leaped into the saddle. I galloped away. I stopped only when I had reached my lodgings. Throwing the reins to my orderly, I fled to my room, and I shut myself in to reflect. For an hour, I anxiously asked myself if I were not the victim of a hallucination. No, undoubtedly I had had one of those incomprehensible nervous attacks, those exaltations of mind that give rise to visions and are the stronghold of the supernatural. Yes, and I was about to believe I had seen a vision, that I had merely had an hallucination, when as I approached the window, my eyes fell by chance upon my breast. My cape was covered with long black hairs. And so, that's our short and spooky Saturday presentation tonight, The Spectre by Guy de Maupassant. And again, we are live on location at the Castle Dracula Experience in Second Life tonight. If you've not had the chance yet this Halloween season, or even if you have, I think you will find it a delightful adventure. Come visit, and be sure to join the Castle Dracula group, as there will be many more exciting things coming up. Please see links on screen for Facebook and Discord groups for Castle Dracula. And if you've enjoyed what you've heard here tonight, we hope you'll hit that subscribe button and tell your friends all about us. And be sure to visit our website at www.storylinkradio.com for links to our podcast and lots more exciting offerings. Good night, all. Sleep tight and don't let the vampires bite.